Welcome to the Susan Brender Show. It's all about you, featuring shows on health and wellness, the performing arts, politics, and people who inspire you to be your very best. And now, here's Susan Brender.
You are listening to the Susan Brender Radio Show. I am co-host Deidre Reigal, and I'm actually filling in for Susan today. She is on assignment this week, and I'm sure that we're going to hear all about her exciting adventures when she gets back in town. And in the meantime, I have with me a gentleman today named Mr. Rick Carlton, who is the founder and managing director of SevaChild International and SevaChild India. Rick, welcome to the Susan Brender Show today.
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Likewise, it's a pleasure to have you. You are a very busy man. You've just returned from India, and I know you and I have been working on organizing the state for some months now, and we are very lucky to have you with us today. And so I'd like to take just a little moment and tell our listeners a little bit about you. You did grow up in the southwestern part of the United States, and ladies and gentlemen who are listening, Rick's professional career began very young when he was importing antiques and carpets from Afghanistan, Pakistan, and India. So he opened himself up very early to the world at large. He has owned and operated a fish and dive resort in Honduras, a charter boat service in the West Indies. He's conducted management training for IT company in southern India. So all of this work that he did has prepared him for what he's doing now. He began his humanitarian work on one of his importing trips way back in 1970 in Afghanistan, delivering a van full of pharmaceutical and medical supplies. And that, I think, from everything I'm reading in his wonderful bio, really pushed him forward and inspired him to do what he's doing now, which is international work, specifically in the country of, where he just got back from India, helping at-risk children to avoid a disease that would impact their eyesight and perhaps be even fatal. So, Rick, tell us how this all got started and what you found during your research in 2009 that prompted you to start SevaChild.
Sure. 2009 was a research project that took me to various child aid organizations throughout India, and I spent a month visiting in on different orphanages and slum organizations that work in rural villages, and interviewed their founders and their directors, and found out a lot of information about how they operate and how they're able to provide different benefits to the children that they serve. What I also found during that project, which I never thought of, was that there was a gap in communication between them. So they weren't connecting with one another, and there was a lot of resources that I saw sitting around not being utilized just because they really didn't know that perhaps, the orphanage down the street needed the same product, and they had a surplus of it. So I actually asked them, started asking, would you be interested in networking or communicating with some of the other organizations in the area? And I got 100% yes, positive response. So
wonderful.
Yeah. So that's how it all began. It was an idea to create association and network these child aid organizations so they could do better in providing the benefits that they were providing.
Well, you're really talking about aggregating goodness and quality service by everybody working together rather than separately or even blindly from each other. And quite frankly, if I may, I think that's brilliant on your part to bring organizations together to serve a larger purpose and augment their own resources. So here you were, one man, an American, wanting to help millions of children in a foreign country, literally on the other side of the world. Now, I've traveled to the other side of the world. I know what that's like. What made you think you could succeed?
Well, I have a long history in India, so I'm very familiar with the country and the people. And I've worked there in different capacities in the past. And so for that in mind, I was very comfortable with the country and the people, and I had a vision that I thought I would just see if I could get some traction. So I started asking people if they would be interested in contributing or being a part of something like an association that would bring these organizations together. And again, all positive responses. So that made me think, well, I can do this.
Exactly. Exactly. Again, aggregating your strength by receiving the support that you need. And I would imagine also, Rick, hooking into people's heart. I believe at heart all of us on this planet are good. We really want goodness for ourselves and for others. But there's so much poverty, and there's so many problems of hunger and illiteracy in India especially. What directed you to focus on the VADD disease? And I'm going to ask you to tell our listening audience what that is. And then to begin the nutritional interventions that SevaChild has been so successful with. So let me just ask you to take a moment and explain to our listeners what VADD disease is.
VADD stands for Vitamin A Deficiency Disorder. And in the developed countries like America, we don't have such a thing because everything's fortified with vitamin A, amongst other things. Look at your carton of milk or your cereal or whatever you buy at the store. Plus, vitamin A comes in high concentrations, firstly in meat. That's where you find the highest concentrations. Secondly, in milk products. And then lastly, in vegetables and fruit in trace amounts. So these rural villagers and these children that live in slums get no meat, no milk, and very little uncooked vegetables that would have live vitamin A in it. So basically they have extreme vitamin A deficiency, and that's what causes the problem. So the result of vitamin A deficiency is a very compromised immune system. So children are very apt to get disease. And very specifically, children go blind from this VADD.
Yes,
and half of them that go blind are dead within a year. So it's a big problem in the developing countries. It's a deadly disease.
Wow. And you add on top of that, they are hungry, and there's illiteracy. So I would assume that there's not a knowledge amongst the people of what's really happening to them. Am I correct?
That's correct. In these rural villages where we serve these children, and in the slums where we treat these children with vitamin A, they have no idea. They are illiterate. They're the poorest of the poor, and they just don't know or have any idea. And even when they do find out that their children need vitamin A, they don't have the resources to provide it. They just can't afford. First off, a big chunk of India is vegetarian. They wouldn't eat meat. They would rather die. So those children aren't going to get meat, that's for sure. Even if they could afford it, they wouldn't eat it. And milk products, meat, that kind of stuff is expensive. And another thing is that the typical diet in these rural areas, in these poor areas of India, is dal and chapati, and maybe a little sabji, which is, dal's the beans, chapati is the bread, and then maybe a little what they call sabji, which would be cooked vegetables. But the way they cook the vegetables, they boil them. And in the boiling process, they boil all the vitamins out of it.
Yes.
So basically, these kids are just not getting it. They have to be supplemented.
Exactly. I see exactly what you're saying, Rick. So how then do you identify these children? How do you find them? How do you help them to be open to and receptive to what you're offering? And then once you do that, how do you actually administer these micronutrients to these people?
Well, getting back to the original idea for SevaChild to create an association or a network of child aid organizations, we deal with child aid organizations that are already established and doing things in these rural areas in the slums. They're providing clothes, they're providing food, they're providing school. They're doing things already. So what we've done is we've gone to them and said, look, we can provide you with this vitamin A, it's sorely needed. These children have to have it, or they're going to be sick, and a lot of them are going to die. And would you be willing to add this as an added value to what you're already doing, because you're already there? And almost every organization we've ever connected with to offer this has accepted and said, absolutely, we would love to be a part of that. So that's one of the reasons we grew so fast. I mean, we have over 2,000 volunteer organizations now throughout 18 of India's 29 states. And we reached this year 1.3 million children will be served by that network of organizations. So what they do in response to your question about how do they find the children, they're already there. They're already on the ground in these areas. They know who the children are. Basically what they do is they register the children under 5, and then they set up an event where they come back. They have somebody come and announce it before they arrive, like days before they come. They announce it through the village of the slum that we're coming to do this administration. The women gather their children, bring them to that daily event, and the nutrients are administered. Now, the vitamin A comes in a little gel capsule. It's one small gel capsule. It's a liquid gel capsule, so they simply snip the end of the gel capsule, and the child opens its mouth, and they drop the drops of vitamin A out of the gel capsule into the child's mouth. That dose that's the formula that WHO has been working with for over 20 years in countries all over the world to protect children against VADD. And that protects a child for 6 months. So this dose that we give them, we give it twice a year. Every 6 months we go back in and give another dose to the children until they're 5 years old. And interestingly enough, at 5 years old, they're no longer at risk of the disease. Something happens in their bodies. It's the same with all over the world. So the disease never happens with children over 5. It's always from 6 months to 5 years. That's where it happens.
Well, of course, that's the critical age for the body to establish itself and its own functions. And so it's very brilliant of you to be aware of that and to be there, to actually be on site. I would assume that every 6 months you're in India on site. I've looked at some of the pictures that you've sent, which are stunning, and I believe our listening audience will be seeing some of them as they listen to the podcast. These are stunning pictures, Rick, where you're actually hands-on in the midst of these people administering, and how brilliant of you, if I may pay a compliment, to go in and do what you're doing and give this work. So there's a little compliment from me as I put that in.
Thank you. You're very kind.
And I noticed as well, Rick, as I studied the materials that I've studied to prepare for our wonderful interview today, that your growth has been very rapid. I mean, in the last 5 years, your growth has been tenfold, and your distribution map in India shows that you're roughly 2/3 into every area of India, delivering your micronutrients. And I really want to compliment you and your organization on such rapid growth in such a short space of time. Bravo.
Well,
bravo, my friend.
It just goes to show that, when we put ourselves, this is my true belief, and the reason that I think this all happened, I really can't take that much credit for it because it happened in a miraculous way. But I really, truly believe that when you put yourself in tune with some purpose that is beyond you, that isn't personal, but it's something more than that the universe rises up to support you in that. And that's
absolutely.
I mean,
I'm a
resources, people showing up. I mean, it's been miraculous the whole time. So this whole, explosion of our being able to give the benefits to children there in India has happened very organically and magically in many ways. But just a couple of quick things, statistics. In 2012, 1.5 million Indian children, the highest number in the world, didn't reach their 5th birthday. That's the most recent statistic I have, so I don't have anything in the last 5 years. But vitamin A deficiency is the leading cause of preventable childhood blindness. And as I mentioned before, 50% of the children who go blind from that disease will die within a year. So it's a very serious disease. And by the way, our 1.3 million children that we have in the program today is just scratching the surface. There's an estimated 30 million children in India today left untreated for this disease, and that's what we're after.
Wow. And here you are operating on a very low budget, and yes, you've got 2,000 independent administration partners, 1 million children in your programs. Rick, how do you manage such a huge organization on such a small amount of funding?
Well, first off, we only have 4 employees. 1 is in India and 3 here. 2 of them are part-time, so they're more like volunteers that we pay a little bit of money to just to, help them along, but they're basically big-hearted individuals who want to help, and certainly they're not making a living off of what we're paying them. The total output of our money per month to staff members is $3,500. That's the total money that goes out. So all the rest of the money we raise goes into programs. So that's one way we're able to do it. We've just got people working because they love what we're doing and they love the children that we're serving, and that's where they're coming from. Well, so we've got a goal that we want to help expand what we're doing from the 1.3 million to reach closer to that 30 million that's left untreated. And that is that we've never given 1 rupee to some of our organizations that are individuals who just go out on their own dime, spend their own money for gas, and food on the road when they're going out in really outback areas. They have to travel long distances to get to some of these villages. They have minor expenses like alcohol to keep things sanitary while they're doing the administration, masks to wear over their faces so they don't spread germs, just little items that they use, scissors and so on. But it adds up. And when you're like one small organization that has 10,000 children that they're providing a service for every year, that adds up. So basically what we want to do is raise money so we can help those people to not only sustain the 1.3 million that are on the program now, but expand and start to reach out to more and more of that 30 million that are left untreated. Completely understood,
Rick. And I would like for you to take a moment and tell the people who are listening to this broadcast who would like to help support your mission in India how they can get involved.
I would be glad to. I'd like to say that our goal is to support these individuals that I just mentioned with 12 rupees, which is approximately 20 cents U.S. per child per year. And if we can do that, if we can give them 20 cents per child per year to go out and do this work, we can grow this really fast. What that means is that for every $1,000 we raise, 5,000 children are protected from that disease for a whole year. So,
and you've been hugely successful in doing this so far. I mean, the numbers are there. So this is something very worthwhile for people to get behind and support. So, Rick, I think I interrupted you, and I apologize for that. I would love for you to tell people how they can reach you and your organization to provide this support.
Absolutely. So the website is www.sevachild.org. And Seva is not spelled the way you would think. It's spelled S, and then E as in Edward, V as in Victory, A as in Apple, and then the letters for child, CHILD.org. So they can go online. There's contact numbers there if you need to talk to me or someone else from our organization. There's a donate button there and a page where you can make a contribution to either a one-time donation or set up a monthly contribution if that feels like something is right for you. There's also an opportunity to volunteer, so there's a link that you can connect with one of our people and talk about any service you might have that you might want to volunteer. So we're open to all of that, and we would certainly love to have you join our family. It's a small family. We haven't raised a whole lot of money in the past. It's been very little, but we like to think of ourselves as all together people who care about these children and want to do some really good things with their money, because the bang for the buck here, as you can see, is quite large.
Yeah, absolutely it is. And I can tell you I will be a financial contributor to this, Rick. You have so moved me. And as we were chatting earlier before we began this interview, as a member of Rotary myself, I understand the heart that comes from the caring about other people and wanting to help in whatever way we can. And as I say, as a Rotarian, I completely understand this, and I will be making a financial contribution today, and I would invite our listeners to do the same, because obviously there is a big bang for the buck, and you're a very transparent organization, and I'm very excited. I really salute you for your work. And as a little shout out as well, Lynn Walker was kind to refer you and me to each other, and I want to give a shout out at the end of this interview to Lynn Walker for putting Rick and me together. And Lynn's been a dear friend for some years now, and I think you know her from another organization, Rick. And so just a big hi to Lynn Walker.
Hi, Lynn.
Yeah, exactly. So, Rick, I absolutely salute you. Sadly, our time is coming to a close here. And if you would be so kind as to once more tell people how they can get in touch with you to make this important contribution to your very, very grand work here.
Absolutely, and thank you. So the website again is www.sevachild.org, and Seva is spelled S-E-V-A, and then the letters for child.org.
Excellent, Rick. I thank you so much. I wish you so much good luck and so much goodwill on both sides of the coin. Ladies and gentlemen, we have been speaking with Rick Carlton today, who is the founder of SevaChild International. Rick, it has been a delight to have you on the show, and this has been the Susan Brender Show. And Rick, again, thank you, and we'll see you all next time. To our listening audience, take care. See you on the next one. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to The Susan Brender Show. To be a guest, email sebrender@yahoo.com.